It's your girl Key, and I'm here tonight going live talking about how do you change your life. Now, one of the reasons I'm talking about change is because, as you know, change is not easy, and I think we can lose and we gain in when we make changes. And I think often for anyone that I work with, I think one important thing that I often encourage people to talk about is considering the unintended consequences of change. As you know, your girl Key is here on her own tonight because everybody gone home. So I'm just going to have to fiddle with the computer and make sure I get that in a situation where I can share. So what has changed? What would you like to change in your life? Or better still, what questions do you have about change that I can answer for you? Because I need that interaction. So if you're out there and you want to engage with me and you've got questions about change, or maybe you've even thought about going to see a therapist or a counselor and you're not too sure about how that might work out for you, do consider asking me any questions that you have about that. Now, I have my laptop open here, so if you don't want to ask in this public area, big up the hearts, love a heart, need a heart, keeps me going. If you don't want to ask publicly, inbox me privately and I'll be happy to answer what that looks like for you. Big up Jay, see your face there, looking happy as ever. And so change, yeah, I mean, my business is called Key for Change, so I think I'm pretty well qualified to be taking any questions, any queries that you have about change. And one of the things that I'll say about change, and somebody really inboxed me to say, you know what, Key, you're so right in that video. I think I did a video called how to deal with guilt, and you can find that on my YouTube channel. I'll put a link below. And anytime we change, expect relationship casualties. So Jay, you revealed today that you're making big changes in terms of your career. And one thing about when you train to be a therapist is, well, if you do decent training anyhow, is that you learn to focus on you, Billy Little Child and Jay. Hey, I'm taking your questions on change to ask your girl Key. Is that when you train to be a therapist, they ultimately, decent training will get you to focus on you and why you want to help people. What is that about for you personally? What do you get from helping people? Which I think was very uncomfortable for me, but over the 4 years that I trained as a therapist, I learned things like boundaries. I learned that I was actually a yes person. And when you say yes to everybody else, you ultimately say no to you, which can end up you end up either consciously or unconsciously putting yourselves in tricky predicaments where people may use you, abuse you, take advantage, and use you for their own advantage. And so one of the ways that impacted on me was like financially taking out loans in the hope that I'd be paid back. I also took a car out on finance because I hoped that that would also be paid back, and then ended up in situations where, you know, I put myself under a lot of stress. And now as you noticed, I said I put myself under a lot of stress because what I've learned over the years is that it is absolutely beneficial that I take full responsibility for my actions, in order to know the reason why it's so important for me to take responsibility for my actions is because ultimately, if I take responsibility, it also means that I can empower myself to change, give me a like. But if you're someone who goes around pointing a finger at everybody else and nothing's your fault, how could Johnny treat me like that, then it's then you're purely a victim, and then you don't have to do anything differently. You just carry on the same trajectory, acting in the same way, and then being baffled as to why you've ended up in a similar situation with a similar similar situation with similar people who often take the pee. And for me, what I know about change is I often liken it to having a pebble in your shoe. You know, sometimes you might be going about the world and then you feel this little stone in your shoe, and sometimes you can rock with it, you know, it don't hurt too much, it kind of rolls round the edges and you just carry on. But sometimes the pebble's a little bit uncomfortable, and then we have to take off the shoe, bang it out, get rid of it, because that pain is uncomfortable. And so as a therapist, what I have come to realize is that I am often the last resort. People want to put on eyelash, they want to have on hair, they want to get the Gucci bag, the Gucci belt, the Gucci sandal, the Gucci shoe, and the Gucci blouse. And then they're like, well, you know, this Gucci stuff is not making me happy. I see one of your videos, Key, maybe I need to come and see you. So I'm actually quite used to the fact that I am the last resort, because I guess people have to do things in their own unique way. And, you know, for as long as I've been a change maker, get that dirt off your shoulder, I've become accustomed to that. And people who have wanted to work with me for years, they've either followed me on socials or followed my YouTube channel for a number of years before, as I believe, the pain gets it just has to hurt enough where they hit that send button, call button, and then take the steps to assist themselves. You get in a bathroom. Billy, a little child, wonderful news. I'm getting a bathroom. Yeah, you get in a bathroom. Oh, okay, my own space. Well, you know, having our own space is also beneficial for our well-being. But change, if you're talking about, you know, environments and changing our environments, I think changing our environments can also assist change in a very profound way. I was only saying to a dear friend recently who's going through a process of change, how important it is to change the house when certain things have happened, in order to declare to herself and to everybody else that this place is now in different hands. So our environments are also incredibly important. And if I think over the years, if you know me, if you know my story, you'll know that, you know, I'm a grassroots girl. And I think the change that I've had to contend with has been very much connected to also social class, changing from a kind of like grassroots, hand-to-mouth existence to wanting more for myself, not feeling guilty about that, feeling quite comfortable about that, growing comfortable, you know, about that, like, you know, it's okay for me to eat kale, which, you know, sometimes like my mum might still, you know, like roll her eyes about, you know, how come you're so different now if I don't want to eat rice? Because, you know, if you know that rice is not always our friend. So change can happen. I believe it starts here. It starts in our mind, but then it's that it then has to start to infiltrate our behavior. And if you're anything like I was, I always knew that I needed to change, or I knew exactly what I needed to do, but it took a while for that to seep into my behavior. And so if you are contemplating change, if you're going through change, if you're battling, feel free to ask your girl Key a question about change. Like I said, you can either go privately or you can inbox me, because I need that love, I need that energy to vibe off, because it helps me to like, I love a scenario, I do love a scenario, but like I said, you know, change is not easy. And we have to, you know, when I think about change, it's almost like staying stuck has to become so uncomfortable. And it's not that, you know, and we fear newness because we don't know what that looks like. You know, I can articulate this all day long, and don't think just because I can articulate it that I don't, you know, sometimes struggle with my next steps in terms of moving on. But change, you know, is usually about, we have to be uncomfortable where we're currently at, and the pain of where we're currently at has to supersede the fear of trying something new. Does that speak to you? Does that speak to something that you might be going through, where actually, yeah, we are fearful of something new, but we have to be uncomfortable enough. It's got to get bad enough before we actually take that step. And I am absolutely fine with that. You know, people contact me often and then they ghost me, but your girl Keeley is, I'm robust. It's all right if you ghost me, because often people come back because maybe it just wasn't your time. What did you say here? We said, yes, it does. I had to get to a place where I knew I needed to change, and this is where I've been for the last year, and the change has been a real journey. Listen, man, don't you find it rather bizarre? Let me sit on this side, because sometimes when I rerun it, all I can see is the text in the thing, unless I sit here. Or I have to sit here. It is most definitely, and I think the thing is with us, with humans, we often know what we want. We often really know, but sometimes we have to go through a process of trying again, being hopeful, sweeping it under the rug, or staying in a state of fear. And I know, you know, there's a process that I'm going through at the moment, and I know what I need to do. You know, so Key is never going to act like I'm exempt from this. I am human too, so I totally get it. And Jay, like, I'm really proud that you've got to the point where you feel like, yeah, you want to train and become a therapist. That's wonderful. And if you want to ever hire any rooms, you know, your girl Key for Change can hook you up here in Uxbridge. So most definitely, thank you for that. Really little child, yes, absolutely agree. Change is good, but you have to stick at it, and that can feel lonely and painful. God, yes. And you know what? I often say to my clients, like, I'll be your confidant through this process, because sometimes we're going through change and we can feel so isolated and alone that you do on that journey, you begin to question, like, am I doing the right thing? And then you kind of know going back doesn't work, yet you're in that process, you're in the chasm of change where the newness hasn't quite settled in, and it's particularly uncomfortable. And if that speaks to you, it's all a part of the journey, you know. And the ambition is we're shedding skin, as someone said to me recently, actually yesterday when I was with my coach. You know, it's like autumn, and I'm not really into this kind of like weather and moons and stars and skies. I don't, that's not really my lane. I don't know enough about it. You know, you go, Key, I stay with what I know. But she spoke about autumn being a time of shedding leaves, and linked that to that sometimes, you know, we also need to shed leaves in our own life. We need to shed things away, and that really resonated with me. So yeah, change isn't always easy, and it's okay if you decide to abandon change and then go back to where, you know, if I know life enough, then if, you know, it's highly likely often sometimes you become uncomfortable again. And this also reminds me of a video I did called Hopeless Hope. Like, we also, if you think about that in terms of intimate relationships, which is an area that I am passionate about, because I believe our stuff shows up in our intimate relationships, is that we have to be very careful of hopeless hope, because hopeless hope can keep us stuck, and it means that we stay in situations that may not actually work for us. Let your girl Key get here, because the lighting team have not turned up tonight, and then I need to kind of be here-ish. No, I need to be over there-ish. Then I've got to move the whole time thing. So that is kind of where I'm at tonight with all of this. But actually, it is really all about you, you know, having to understand. I think sometimes if we understood the process of change, I think that helps, because then you can plot exactly where you're at. And when I used to work in the prisons on drug courses, we would talk about relapse prevention and the wheel, the cycle that people would go around. And sometimes we're in a contemplation phase, like, you know, you need to do something, but you're just not ready yet. And if, for example, you've been in tricky relationships where people have been unkind to you and you want to move on, yet once again you hold on to that love in the hope that, I know, things will change or you're optimistic. I think sometimes we just have to do the vicious cycles until we kind of like get fed up enough. And like I said, it's the pebble in the shoe. It has to hurt enough. And when you get there is when you get there. And friends and family won't always understand that. So anytime you're contemplating change, what I'll say about that is expect relationship casualties. I'm not here to pretty things up. I'm not here to tell you what you don't want to hear. If you want that, then, well, you're probably best to not watch my material. And sometimes I get told off about that, because I'm told that I need to be a little bit more subtle, break it down a little bit more nicely for people. However, I'm passionate that we find ways to live our best life, but not in this kind of superficial let's smile for the camera, but actually, you know, we are accepting that life comes with bad days, bad phases, bad seasons where we don't feel so great, seasons when we do feel sad. But also alongside that is that when we are absolutely having living our best life, that's true and that's authentic. And that is the benefit of change. It's that we leave the harbour of safety. It's like a ship, right? So you leave that harbour of safety and then you go to explore. And in that process, you begin to discover so much about yourself. And I often say to my clients, like, you know, stick with the process. Your future self will be grateful that you have done that. And you know, I also declare that to myself as well, that actually, like, my future self, when I was way back there, when I was thinking about studying and how much it would cost, and the fact that I'd have to take out another loan to do my master's because, you know, I couldn't get funding to do a master's because I got my funding to do a degree, yet I wanted to do a master's. I wanted to take it up a notch. And sometimes it's like, how am I going to do this? And I just decided to invest in me. And today, I am where I am today because I made those sacrifices in the past. And so if someone's working with me, and you know this stuff ain't not just book to key, like, oh, Jay, thank you for keeping it real. But, you know, like, Jay, like, keeping it real is really not easy because, why is it not easy? Because people often like to, they like the idea of the truth and not the reality of the truth. And so, you know, I've been told by coaches that, Keeley, you've got to learn the art of being subtle, and that I need to deliver my message in a more, I don't know, sometimes I'm like, I got a minute on Instagram to do a message and send a video. Like, I need people to know, like, I did the recent video about don't let people treat you like no doormat. And that's because I literally saw doormats. And, you know, I'm often hearing that, you know, oh, I feel like a doormat, like, bam, the video's there. And I can't think of a way of doing that subtly. Although my coach did say, you know, maybe you could put a question at the end, or 3-way, you know, here's one way to not feel like a doormat. So, you know, there are things that I can improve upon, but, you know, I'm just so passionate. And I think that my passion is inspired by my journey from, like, single parent, working at IKEA, feeling like, you know, I couldn't even get a job at the council, which was considered to be a great job. Yet every time I filled out the application form, I never got anywhere. So, you know, I'm very passionate because I truly fundamentally believe that if I can change, that you can change. And yes, we all have different life circumstances and different family and different access to support, but we have to make the choice here. It begins with us. And if you've got that spiritual arm that's open, that works for you, give me a like if you do spirituality, if you get signs. So you make a decision and then all of a sudden, you know, you get the signs. I had a sign this week when, whoa, it was a heavy one actually. I just, you know, I looked down and I was worried about something. Something was playing my mind. And my dear great friend Jenny we was together in Marrakesh, and she bought me a necklace, and I looked down, and on the necklace it just said faith, and I was, I lifted up my head instantly. Lifting up your head is also a very great way to change your energy. If you're feeling down and you hold your head down, then you find more thoughts. So one tip, if you are feeling down, just lift your head up. If you notice when people, it's all that kind of movement. I used to think this stuff was bizarre, and then the more I've got to train and really understand it, I've realized how much truth that is. So lifting our head up can be particularly important. Vicky, yes, I need to let go of the safety net. It's time to change. Our sister, I get it. 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 There is comfort in safety, but there is also, like, what do I call it? The uncomforts, like the comfort zone. But we can get so comfy and cozy in the comfort zone that we stagnate. And, stagnation is no good for our greatness. We can't grow. And if you ever pass stagnant water, you know that it's a unlovely smell, let's say. And so, we have to check ourselves. But I wholeheartedly get it that, change is not easy. Especially, thinking, about my area that I'm always interested in, which is about relationships. Intimate relationships, breaking things off, feeling the shame, feeling, especially, if you've been bragging and boasting, and, that may even be on social media, or the expectations that people have, and say if that relationship's not working for you, it can be devastating, but time passes really fast. And if I think about, like this time last year, I blocked somebody, and that person, I used to speak to that person every day. And when you first block someone, and then the regular phone calls don't come along, and you look at your phone and they're not there because they can't be there, because we lock them off, because we do that because we have to protect our niceness. Say that, give me a like, give me a heart, give me a star. We have to protect our niceness because people will come along and take advantage, and we don't want that in 2019, because we got dreams and ambitions that we want to fulfill. So I was just thinking about, like, just yesterday, like, it doesn't even cross my mind anymore, because I'm so over that, so as you grow, when you're caught up in your head, and we have to be careful of our heads, because sometimes, and as I encourage my clients, write down the things that you say to yourself, because that's your inner dialogue, and your inner dialogue influences the behavior. So if you always find little excuses to give in, to say yes to someone, or to hold on, we also have to be careful of our fears, because fears is a massive factor that fuels us being scared of change, staying in a so-called comfort zone, and then not stepping out. My daughter she made me watch a cartoon film called The Croods. And basically, what I took from it was the dad wanted the kids to stay in the cave. He's like, stay in the cave, and the cave is safe. But one child wanted to explore, wanted to discover more. And she was kind of trying to change against her family who wanted to do things the same. And so the reality is, often when we change, people can be very uncomfortable about it. Sometimes it's the very same people that encourage you to change, that you needed to fix up yourself. And then when they see that you are, and you take it seriously, you're investing in you, you're moving and shaking, and you're doing things differently, and now it impacts upon them, watch and see what you get, because people can often baffle you. And I know this ain't just me. You're really inspiring me. Jay, thank you very much. And what time is it? It's 9:30. Yes, lift up your head and hold it up high. Yeah, holding our heads up. There is a time for sorrow, most definitely. But there's a little GIF that I had on my Facebook page recently, where a basketball player missed the ball and his head was down and his colleague just came and pushed it up. And I think it's so important that we have people to lift us up. And sometimes I don't care what anybody says, you have to pay people to lift you up, especially if you don't have them in your circle. And I'm not saying that just because I'm a therapist. You know, this is my book, Why Love Hurts and Why Self-Love is the Key. And I had a specific coach who helped me with that. I had a specific coach who had published books, because I needed that guidance. I needed that specific guidance to help me achieve this. Because if it was just down to me, listen, writing it's not my lane. You know, it's not my natural skill, I don't believe. However, I felt it was important that I put on paper what I was noticing about intimate relationships, which this then fueled the Feel Loved workshop, which I'll be delivering this Saturday. And today I sold my first ticket for my Feel Loved event in February the 15th. So I feel very, very privileged and honored that, you know, that like I've sold a ticket for a group in February. I always want to remain grateful and thankful for what I have and for where I am, because I know exactly where I'm coming from. I always think that there's like a checkout with my name waiting for me to get there, and this girl Keeley has just, you know, ensured by my actions that that would not be my reality. And that's come through hard work, sacrifice, dedication, and making sure you get the right people around you and the wrong people away from you. If you don't learn to sieve the wheat from the chaff, some people, especially from your history, from where you've come from, some people, especially family, you got to watch out for family, you know, because they have a very fixed, rigid view of us. And them changing their minds can be very difficult, because they will always see you as the little boy or the little girl who, I don't know, pees her pants. Like, so shifting that can be quite a challenge. And that's why I'm very proactive. I'm very passionate about, sometimes we have to limit our time with family members, because, you know, or make sure you put self-care strategies in place. I know, so, you know, make sure you got exit strategy. Sometimes we know, you know, we're in September, Christmas is coming up, and families can often be the greatest test, because they are often wedded to you being a particular version of you, which may well have you've outgrown. That doesn't work for you. Billy Little, my mum said, read Jonathan Seagull. That's about change. It's amazing. Okay, well, I've not heard of his work, but I'm gonna round up now, because I've had a 12-hour day. I'm very fortunate to do what I do, very privileged, and this is what I have created because I changed. So the passion that I have about change is because I have walked the walk and I continue to walk the walk. And I'm most definitely passionate about change, because if I didn't change, God knows where I'd be. I shudder to think about how my life would be, because I really do think I would have been absolutely depressed and very sad and a shadow of the person, of my potentiality, which is one of the reasons why I'm such an advocate of human potential over mental health. I believe when we have anxiety, depression, or it's a sign that we're out of sync with our authenticity. And my job, should you choose to work with me as your therapist, is to help you discover what you love, why you love it, and why you don't say yes to you. One of the reasons why we often don't say yes to ourselves is because we often say yes to you, yes to you, and yes to you. And when we keep saying yes to everybody else, it's only a matter of time before we become sad, depressed, and then we wake up one day and we say, I don't know who I am. I don't feel like me anymore. And if you ever get to that point where you hear yourself saying, I don't know who I am, I don't feel like me anymore, holler at your girl Key. And remember, do take care of you. Because if you don't, who will? Take care. Good night.